This is my review of Mob Psycho 100. Okay, so things get interesting in this episode. So, Mob, having joined the Body Improvement Club, is now trying to, improve his body. But because he isn't exactly physically fit, he passes out almost immediately and is sent to the club room, mainly because he kind of can't keep up with the rest of the Body Improvement Club. At which point he reveals that he does in fact have psychic powers to the now defunct Mind Telepathy Club. And the Telepathy Club leader, Tomei, reveals that her main goal for starting the Telepathy Research Club was to kind of interact with aliens. She wants to make contact with extraterrestrials. And Mob kind of refuses, saying that the main reason he decided to join the Body Improvement Club instead was because he wanted to, for lack of a better word, become popular. And at which point Tomei immediately tells him that he probably never will be, and at which point he goes to his job with Reagan, who tells him not to worry about it and that he should just focus on being the best he can be. And Mob doesn't really have much of an answer from either of them, so he heads home, at which point he runs into a cult member who starts grasping at straws to try and figure out why he's unhappy, and eventually realizes that he's unhappy because of his love life, and Mob decides to dismiss her and go home, but when she tells him that he'll be popular, he agrees. At which point she reveals herself to be a member of a cult group known as LOL, which is designed to make people happy peacefully. At which point we run into one of Mob's classmates, Ichi Mizama, who will get into her role later, but at this point the cult leader, a man going by the name of Dimple, who I'm not going to picture here because you'll see. But anyway, Dimple shows up and greets his followers, and then meets the three new recruits, Mob and Ichi, and some homeless guy they picked up off the street. At which point they bring him down into the main crowd and put a little happiness hood over his head, at which point Mizama confronts Dimple about his motives for starting the cult, and about how she believes that he's using hypnosis to control other people, which he adamantly denies after showing that the man that they put the sack on just moments earlier is suddenly happy. And it is revealed later that it is actually hypnosis working, but it isn't explained till later. At which point Ichi apologizes and tries to leave, but is hypnotized herself and realizes that she's smiling without her being able to control it. At which point Mob reveals that he has been wearing the hood for quite a while and hasn't been feeling any real effects, and asks if he can go home. At which point Dimple confronts him and tells him that he has to win a smiling contest against the three smiling leaders, which he wins simply because he's completely emotionless, but that's explained later in the episode as well. At which point Dimple confronts him directly and actually spikes his milk with a special substance that's designed to make him spit it out. And he does, and Mob loses, but Mob points out that he didn't lose because he didn't laugh. At which point it's caused enough mental duress and psychic duress to cause his psychic powers to lash out and free everybody from their hypnosis, which Dimple immediately puts it back on them. And Dimple realizes that there might be a coincidence there, but he's not entirely sure, and decides to use his last effort, which is to just hypnotize Mob directly. At which point he realizes that Mob actually does have psychic powers, and tries to confront Mob and tells him to get a clue, which he remembers Tsubomi telling him one time, because Tsubomi just wanted him to be happy and laugh, but Mob kind of just isn't that kind of person. And they refuse to let him go, they refuse to let him leave, and eventually Mob's emotions come out. So it's revealed that Mob's emotions kind of kind of have a limit, and that he's learned that his emotions are the key to his powers, and that as long as he keeps emotions in check, he won't explode and take down half the street with him. So, but when Mob's emotions get too strong, i.e. in this moment where he's getting more and more fed up with Dimple's antics, that his emotions finally burst forth and he goes all out with his psychic powers. At which point, one particular emotion comes out, his anger and hatred at all of Dimple's antics. At which point, Dimple reveals himself to actually be an evil spirit possessing the man who was presumably in charge, but isn't actually in charge, and attacks Mob, but Mob effortlessly defeats him and points out that he let his emotions out at Dimple's request, and reveals that this is what happens when he lets his emotions out, and instantly effortlessly defeats Dimple, and then leaves and tells Reagan all about the experience, and Reagan points out that he was just saving a bunch of people in the way only he can. At which point Mob goes home and wakes up only to find that Dimple, in his true form, which I am now picturing here, has indeed followed him home and is sleeping in his bedroom with him. So when Mob wakes up, Dimple is standing there watching over him, which is not creepy at all. This is just casually something you do when you're psychic. You see spirits in your bedroom. It's completely natural. But anyway, this episode establishes Dimple as a supporting character, I guess, because Dimple is a recurring character from this point onward, but Dimple is not exactly the best guy to be your friend, because throughout the rest of the series he's constantly manipulating people to get what he wants, and this first episode where he's introduced is no exception. So he's constantly manipulating people in order to get his own agenda, which is to just control the entire world by himself. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic, because Dimple is a very powerful and very dangerous spirit, and it was only because Mob's emotions came out that he was able to beat him in the first place. Because up to this point, Dimple wasn't trying to do anything to harm Mob, he was just trying to control him and put him under his umbrella so he could control him and become the most powerful, well, for lack of a better word, Esper. Because one of Dimple's powers is that he's able to bring out people's latent psychic powers, which is an interesting ability, and it comes into play later. But for the most part, he's just an evil spirit who wants to take over the world. And that's kind of not the kind of guy you want to be your friend. But anyway, if you guys have seen this episode of Mob Psycho 100, what did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, check out my Patreon description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month, and it really helps me out. And you got access to a bunch of different perks and tiers that you can check out and pick which one you can afford. So be sure to check those out in the description below as well. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace! It was supposed to be like this uncorruptible